Okay,
Those of us
great.
watching on our Facebook page, hello, I'm Mark Moran. I'm the Associate GM for News here at KJZZ. We also operate bureaus around the Southwest and a youth media center for underprivileged youth. This is our newsroom in Phoenix, and we were joined unexpectedly about 2 minutes ago by this very special guest, and I'll turn the floor to him for just a few minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for gathering. I guess you're trying to do the Lord's work in the city of Satan. I've been trying to do that for a long time, so good luck. I have a 45-minute speech ready to deliver to you on the North Korean nuclear buildup that I know you've all been waiting for. So, but look, thanks for all you do. There is more requirement, in my view, to inform the people of America and the world than at any time that I can remember, at least since the end of the Cold War. We have had attacks on the United States of America. We have the rise of ISIS. We have Vladimir Putin's adventurism. We have the Chinese in Asia, and so there's a lot to cover. But I also would emphasize to you what is happening to the erosion and the assaults on freedom of the press. A good example of that is Turkey, supposedly a democracy. Since the attempted coup, the first thing that Erdogan is doing is shutting down the media that might in any way disagree with him. And we're seeing that in Eastern European countries. We're seeing a polarization. Austria is a great example, a moderate country where the two candidates for president were far right and far left. So this is a time where we have to stand up not only to give people information and knowledge, but to stand up for the fundamental principle upon which democracy is based. Now, I have from time to time hated the media, but that is also a very healthy thing. But seriously, I have respected, but more importantly, we have to give people around the world, and particularly countries that have known freedom of the press for many years, information which is knowledge. And I don't think they can stop it because of this device. But I also believe that the assault on freedom of the press is larger and more dangerous than we have seen it in our lifetime. Thanks for all you do.
Do you have time for a question or two?
Sure.
Questions in our newsroom or in our bureaus?
Is there anything we can do to protect the press here at home while we're being attacked abroad? As far as like maybe whistleblower protection or?
I believe that whistleblower protection is important. I think it's, I believe there is whistleblower protections, but there's also cases where there has been retaliation. On the Armed Services Committee from time to time we have seen members of the military become whistleblowers, and there has been retaliation. Those that retaliate have got to be punished. If they're not, then it will be more widespread. So, look, it's constant vigilance. It's constant. There will always be people that want to have only a version in the media that it pleases them, and this has been going on for as long as this nation has been the nation that it is.
I sat in a couple of days ago with a call with the Centers for Disease Control, and one of the reporters had mentioned that when they talk to people around the country about Zika, it's something that they say that the media is perpetuating, and they mentioned that it was because Congress did not approve of a funding bill, and so they don't see it as much of an issue, and they blamed it on the media. When you are in Washington and you hear reports about Zika, there's I think 14 confirmed cases here in Arizona. What is your kind of response to people who do express their concerns and are not as concerned about the power of Zika and what we do or do not know yet?
I think the American people are deeply concerned about Zika. I think there has been extensive coverage of it, but I think that the problem is this continued gridlock that we have in Washington, D.C., which contributes to this low opinion that the American people have of us. They expect us to work for them, and we're not. And we're hung up on the Zika issue, which every member of Congress supports the funding, on various provisions that are not in or are in the legislation. I hope when we go back in September that we will take that as a priority item. And then if any politician wonders why the American people are frustrated, then look at this as a classic example. By the way, again, and I don't mean to give a long answer, but the way you get Bernie and the way you get Trump is because so many Americans are frustrated at what they think is a government that doesn't work for them. In the case of Bernie Sanders, to our station down in Tucson, they were there when 13,000 people showed up for a rally for Bernie Sanders. We see Donald Trump with these huge crowds, and so we have got to restore credibility. The only way to do that is show people results. I can show you a number of results that we have achieved. Okay, we did a good education reform bill. We did a number of other pieces of legislation, but that has not penetrated to the American people, and that's reflected in the polls. But as I said when I walked in here, we're going to make America great again, and it's going to be huge.
What's the average American supposed to think?
The Bureau reporter in Tucson. I have a question for you. Since you brought up the presidential candidate Trump, any word from you, or are you planning to withdraw your support of him after his comments on Mr. Connor?
Well, I spoke out very firmly, as you know, on his comments on Mr. Khan. I'm not interested in having Hillary Clinton as President of the United States. I just saw her last Sunday just tell outright falsehoods about her involvement with the so-called servers and others. I have said I'm party of Ronald Reagan and Abraham Lincoln, and I will stick with the nominee of my party. That does not restrain me from speaking out. But more importantly than that, I'm running for re-election. I can't follow everything that Mr. Trump says and reacts to everything, nor will I react to everything he said. I had to in the case of the cons. But I'm running my own campaign. I'm trying to work as hard as I can for the people of Arizona and can convince them that I am worthy of their support for another term, both on national security and also about what I have done for the state of Arizona, of which I'm very proud.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. So we want to observe the custom that they practice in Chicago, and that is that we honor the dead so much we let them vote. So don't forget that part of our political process. My favorite joke I'll end up with is the two inmates in the chow line in the state prison. And one of them turned to the other and said, "The food was a lot better in here when you were governor. Thanks very much." Thanks, guy. Good to see you all. Keep up the good work.
All right. So let's start our morning meeting, and we'll start in-house. So I'm going to ask Will, what are you working on?
This morning I'll be finishing up my longer feature on this wave of lawsuits against businesses in the Valley for non-ADA compliance. I have an edit on that later today, and for a story for Monday, next week there'll be hearings will resume for the first rate case at the Corporation Commission, and this is thought will set some precedent for future cases. So I can do a quick story on that for Monday.
Okay, great. Do you know what the slug is yet, or what do you call it, Corpcom case?
UNS rate case is one.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine, you've been checking with the Weather Service because we have rain.
Yes,
a lot of it.
and I've also reached out to the Maricopa County Flood Control District. They have this really awesome map that I like to follow, and it shows that in some areas of the Phoenix area there has been more than an inch of rain that has fallen, and so that's where we're kind of seeing some of the issues with flooding, like we just saw on TV. So I've reached out to them, and I'm trying to get more kind of confirmed what's going on.
Okay, great. Kathy Fritke, what are you doing? Or Richie, excuse
Kathy
me.
Ritchie.
Oops,
A lot of Kathy.
That happens all the time. Working on the, there's a first confirmed travel-related Zika case in Yuma County, so just doing a quick voice around that. That brings us up to 14 in the state, all travel-related. There was a press release from the Arizona Center for Disability Law, as well as a couple other organizations, expressing concern that the City of Phoenix Section 8 application process was not ADA compliant. Did an interview, so I should be able to do possibly a wrap, I think would be good for that. Still going to continue to hound the county recorder's office for that one-story idea regarding how they choose polling places, and then whatever else you need that comes along. So,
Okay, sounds good.
thanks.
All right, Carrie Young.
All right, so I have a couple things that they're definitely, well, they could go today, over the weekend, or we could potentially fit them for Monday, but on Saturday, several laws that were passed during this legislative session will be going into effect. One of the funnier ones is it's now legal to have a potluck in this state after they passed that law. So that could be just a quick voicer, just sort of on the fun side for the weekend. But otherwise, there was a bill that made it a crime for a drone to interfere with law enforcement or other like emergency operations. So I could call Phoenix Police or DPS or somebody like that to see if they can just give me a quick cut on that. Otherwise, also the Arizona Board of Regents is holding the first of 2 meetings about, they're doing some investigations into the University of Arizona's medical school in Phoenix. So I can do a curtain raiser on that before I leave. Other than that, just setting up travel authorization for next week.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Let me just weigh in real quick. The curtain raiser, that meeting starts at 1 today, and then there's one in Tucson next week. So if we're going to do it, we need to do it right away. And Mark's talking to somebody from ABOR at 10:30, so we
Oh.
might actually have a piece of tape from that if we wanted to steal it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Great. Stina.
So working on producing my story about this telephone history museum in Phoenix. So it's a conversation about this telephone history museum, but also about the bigger idea of what does telephone history mean in a world where phones and our relationship to it are totally changing so rapidly. So this was on the news last night. I don't want to just like follow TV news, but I think it is really interesting. The father of the boy who died while hiking 2 weeks ago, the 12-year-old boy, his thing is, why do we have a ban on dogs hiking in high heat and not on minors hiking in high heat? Because 2 weeks before his son died, the city council had said no to a ban on hiking in temperatures of 100 degrees, 110 degrees or more, and it was 110 degrees when the boy died, or 115. So I think that's an interesting thing to follow up on. I'm not sure who to talk to yet. I don't want to make a thing that's not a thing, but I think it is a real question.
Well, it was Phoenix City Council that passed that ordinance, or
Yeah.
put up the signs?
Yeah,
Okay.
and so and pretty much everyone who was at the meeting who spoke out was for the don't bring dogs to the trails if it's 100 degrees or more.
Okay.
But I think the minors thing is,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty
No,
interesting.
That's a good one. Okay. Thanks. Lauren?
Yeah, so I'm going to have something on the show today, an interview with the Arizona Charter Schools Association president. They do a survey every 2 years of legislative candidates in the primary to look at what issues they're looking at in terms of education, education funding, school choice, stuff like that. So it's definitely newsy. I can make a little spot out of that for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bill?
Well,
Your shift is all
I'll be
over.
working to try to cut up 15 minutes of John McCain into a nice little package for the show. And since President Obama ran late yesterday, I guess there's some stuff holding over and we have to figure out what to do. But a lot of show stuff, our original production for those in Washington. And looking for Monday stories, which is, I'm sure everybody can relate to if you're wherever you are. Monday stories. But anyway, yeah, so.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jimmy?
The FCC raised the limits for the cost of calls for like people that are incarcerated in prisons, and so I was just going to try to find someone to talk with us on the show about how that could affect people in this state.
Okay, great. All right, let's kick it back to Katie, please.
Okay, so I am getting my script edited for the story for the FDA and the new regulations on e-cigarettes and hookah and cigars. So that will be a mini, and then for Monday. I'm also going to give a call to Helen Purcell and just kind of see if there's anything going on with more requests for early voting ballots. Do a little cut and copy.
then Regina and Annika, do you want to?
A lot of bookings for the show.
Yeah, working on stuff for the show. I think Carrie probably hit on what I would have suggested is just all these laws, hundreds of laws going into effect tomorrow. So I think if anyone's looking for ideas, it would be smart to just look up whether it's categorizing, okay, these laws are most likely to affect Phoenicians, or here are some laws that really tie into some big national conversations, like affecting gun laws and things like that. I know there's a couple of those, so that's what I would suggest.
Carrie Young mentioned this a couple days ago, but I don't know if this is something that we might want to do over the weekend. But Kara Christ has something on her blog regarding Zika and the Olympics and how they're going to be actively. So I know you'd pitched it, but maybe it's worth following up. If you don't want it, I can take the Zika beat. But they're going to be monitoring and investigating and all of that. After the Olympics, so that could be something to do for Monday potentially, unless you want to hold till the end of the Olympics. Potentially.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, so let's go back outside the building and we'll start with Michelle. And I liked your question, by the way, to the senator.
Good morning. I am working on our podcast. This is the Dennis Desk podcast, which is slated to start airing on a weekly basis, August 15th. The working title right now is Crossing the Line, a podcast about life and culture along the border here and in the Southwest. I need to get our for branding purposes, our intros and outros and music and titles all locked down today, and those will start airing August 15th with a really great piece that Monica has been working on in Juarez, followed by myself, and then Laurel, and then June when she's back from her leave. I'm pretty much intending to spend the day on this. I am following a case in federal court here in Tucson, and this is on the immigrant detention facilities that the ACLU and other groups have sued the Homeland Security Department over. And if they do release more images of these detention facilities, I'll do a spot. I'm looking to see what the results are first. So I'm not going to put that on the book yet. That's it.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Monica.
Hi, good morning. Yesterday I picked up a good interview with Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who represents West Texas, about public-private partnerships with U.S. Customs. So I've got all the tape I need for the no border crossing feature, and today on log day, do some fact checking and start writing. I plan to be ready for an edit Monday afternoon.
Okay, sounds good. Let's skip over to Rodrigo.
So again, everyone, good to see you again. So I'm going to be working on the barbecue story here in Mexico. It's going to be like a story about an American entrepreneur started his idea here in Mexico. It'll probably be a wrap for the future.
Okay, sounds good. All right, do we want to talk to Mr. Hoban? You're up, John.
I think want to is a different issue, but there you go. The podcast that Michelle was talking about, if you guys get the new KJZZ, click on podcast, you'll see a bunch of buttons for the new ones we're releasing, including the Fronteras ones, which will be available. So that's a place you can hear the stuff from Monica, Laurel, etc. So that's a good way to find it. The other pieces are, as I mentioned, the Regents Medical School conversation today, and then we are actually talking or trying to talk with Howie Fisher about the new laws taking effect. We don't tend to use tape from him on air, but that may be a way for us to look at what might be worth doing a follow-up for the weekend and Monday. And then the only other thing I would add is that make sure that we're focusing on stuff that has some legs, because there's a lot of news of the moment, but it won't last even until tomorrow morning. So let's make sure we've got some things that will hold over until Saturday mid-morning, or if we file late in the afternoon, that they'll go until Sunday, that kind of thing.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. So Spot, did she leave? Otherwise, I think we're done unless anyone has something else to add.
John, thanks for the catch on the Howie story yesterday. That's just a really good cautionary note. That Center for Responsive Politics website should almost be outlawed because it's so fun and so packed full of data, but it's always good to really be careful about the specific statistic you're looking at, because it's so granular that you can make it say almost anything. So it's a great website in an election season. Just be super careful about how you use it. So thanks for the catch on that, John.
And by the way, on that topic, it turns out that zip code in Scottsdale, which gave more money to Trump than any other zip code in the country, gave more money to Hillary Clinton during that same time. In fact, I think twice as much as they gave Trump. So it was like $29,000 for the zip code for Trump, but like closer to $60,000 for that zip code for Hillary Clinton. So it's a very politically active and obviously rich zip code, which might be worth looking into further as we go along. But that's sort of the addendum to the story.
Yeah, no, it's just a great catch, and we just got to be really careful about that to not, And Howie's stuff is good and it's very valuable. We just have to always be careful. We didn't write it, we didn't produce it, right? So we didn't edit it. So let's always just make sure and keep close eyes on it. And I didn't even think about it. So thanks for that, John. Is that it?
That's it.
So thanks everybody who's watching in DC. Happy conferencing, Al, if you're there. And I'm glad that the NABJ/NAHJ conference is very successful this year. And so this is our Phoenix newsroom.
Bye. Have a good weekend. Thanks.
Have a good one.